piece in the Sun today about the blob. A big interview with Harry Cole did with Simon Case, the head of the civil service, formerly head of the civil service, for Never Mind the Ballots. He basically said it doesn't matter who's in power, Britain's in crisis and it needs fixing. And Simon Case, Ryan, very good morning to you, hints at the fact that basically the blob is really in charge of this country, and no matter who gets elected every single time there's an election, a general election that is, that it doesn't make any difference because they have to get past these faceless bureaucrats.
Yeah, that's right. Reading this, Mike, is actually quite worrying. You know, you've got someone here who has been at the centre of things for the best part of the last decade or so, whether it's in Number 10. He obviously worked close with the royals, and he knows how the establishment, he knows how the civil service, and he knows what he calls the blob, how it works. And he seems to make the point that it doesn't matter who is in power, what their policies are, what their manifesto is. They seem to find a handbrake on that from whatever they want to do from across government, whether it's health, defence, whatever. But there's this handbrake that's just put on by the civil service. Yeah. So they can come up with all these big ideas. And he make the quote there, really interesting quote. You have this grand, brand new, sparkling idea. You want to put into power. You've just come into power. But every time you look at someone in the civil service, they just sandpaper away at it. That every single department you go to, it gets chiseled away. And by the time you come to put this policy into fruition, into actually making it work, you're actually left with nothing. And I think that one of the key points he makes in this is that when people vote at a general election, they vote for change. So if you voted Conservative back in 2010 or Labour in 2024, you want change. But actually, whichever politician is in power, that change is very, very difficult to achieve.
Well, that's right. We keep being told, of course, that the plan for change is underway. Keir Starmer reminds us of it pretty much with every single video that he puts out, and they put out 2 or 3 of those a day, possibly more. But the change that's happening in Britain seems to be, at the moment, a change for the worse. You know, we've got unemployment going up. We've got more and more people losing their jobs. We've got the economy going faster down the gurgler than you could say Rachel Reeves. You've got no real prospect on the horizon of any investment coming into the country as people leave it in droves, people leaving the country to go and live elsewhere, like places like Dubai and Italy and Portugal and the United States of America. I mean, there isn't anything good going on right now that the government can point to when they say, oh, things are on the up, but they keep saying it nonetheless.
Yeah, no, exactly. Every single interview you hear from a government minister, it doesn't matter which department they're in, they always talk about this plan for change. It's all like change. But the trouble is, there's this big disconnect from what they say and what they're actually going to do. And I think the trouble is, it's so much short term that the long-term picture it's just very, very difficult to get that change when you're working to that sort of 4 or 5 year time frame. You know, we've got to have elections every 4 or 5 years, but actually sort of Britain needs a sort of big long-term plan. And I think when you've got politicians chasing their tails, trying to deal with the problems of today, it's really, really difficult. And Simon Case makes that point. So it's almost as if you've got to rip up the whole system and start again.
Right. But of course, that's what they were supposed to be doing. I mean, they came into power saying that they were prepared for government. They said that they were ready in every single department of state to hit the ground running. They had a plan. It was all costed. They knew exactly what they were doing. And of course, as soon as they got in, they went, oh, crikey, that's not what we thought was going to happen. And now they've been trying to recover from that, and they still haven't recovered from it. And if anything, they've made it worse. Let's have a quick look at a little clip from Simon Case talking to Harry Cole.
Say this, but did you say this when you're on the inside?
I'm not going to go into what I said on the inside, but I'll tell you what I think, and you can draw your own conclusions. You can't have elections where no matter who you vote for, you just keep getting the same answer.
Yes.
So you have to change this question. We have to put... we love to kind of rib and tear strips off our politicians. Actually, I think we go too far on that. These are people who put themselves forward to try and make this country a better place, and they deserve our support for doing it. And what we should be trying to do is make sure that whatever platform they stand on, whoever you vote for, if they come into power, they've got the space to do it. And a lot of that, for me, is about stripping back the powers that have been handed to all sorts of... not all of them are quangos, but all sorts of interest groups, and bring these back into
what we might call
control.
the blob. Do you recognise that?
I used to be in charge of
you
a big bit
ran
of
the blob.
The
you
blob,
are
and as you
blob.
probably know, I hate that phrase because I think it's unbelievably dehumanising.
Yes.
But I do understand
where it's coming from.
That there is this kind of faceless, to many people and many politicians, faceless sort of set of organisations that seems to be holding power no matter what you want to do.
It's fairly typical, I suppose, of Britain in the way that it's governed, for the guy who used to be in charge of the blob, as he doesn't like to call it, saying that the blob is a big problem. And well, when he was running it, maybe he could have made it less of a problem.
Yeah, no, it does beg that question as well. But I think when you're in government, you're trying to make things work. You're trying to make all the departments sing. But I think it's interesting when Simon Casey's been out of government a few months or so, that actually he can take a big picture look at it and actually realise that things aren't going right. Now, I'm sure he had all these frustrations when he was actually in government, but it's only now that actually perhaps he can actually advise those people who are in government and actually just say, this is how you need to do it. And he seems to be setting out that prospectus just there. But I do think there is deep frustration. He talks about how we should have people who want to strive to become Prime Minister or in the cabinet. The way the political system works and the whole sort of Westminster bubble, you wonder whether it's actually just putting off sort of the brightest and the best talents from actually entering frontline politics.
Yeah, it's a very worrying situation. Ryan, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Definitely political editor at The Sun. Big piece in The Sun today by Harry Cole, an interview with Simon Case, who used to be, of course, the top Mandarin in the government. And even he says it doesn't matter who's in power. Britain is in crisis and it needs fixing. And he says the voters will be more and more angry as time goes on. And he's absolutely right, particularly this morning, angry about the Chagos Islands and the deal that was done by Keir Starmer, which has resulted in the Chagos Islands giving Mauritius a bumper kind of tax break, because it means basically the £30 billion that we as a government have sent them. That's all our money. That's money that we've paid in taxes, by the way. It's going to Mauritius, and the Mauritians are now being told 81% of them who are in work will not have to pay any income tax at all. Marvellous, isn't it? Absolutely marvellous. Now, we've also got a new way that you can contact us and a new way that you can contribute to the show. And we're going to read out some letters every single day now from The Sun, their letters page, the page where you tell Britain what you think. And an awful lot of people writing in about Rachel Reeves. It's good news that Chancellor Rachel Reeves has restored the winter fuel payment to pensioners with an annual income of less than £35,000. But she needs to apologise for putting elderly people through the misery of cutting it last winter in the first place. This is from Gillian in Nottinghamshire. In Britain, we seem to look after everyone but our own people, spending money to house migrants in hotels, but not keeping our tax-paying elderly warm in their own homes. The government should be ashamed of themselves. And Gordon says, now that Rachel Reeves is reversing last year's decision to remove the winter fuel allowance from pensioners, is she going to reimburse those affected? Perhaps I shouldn't hold my breath. Well, quite right. It is absolutely ridiculous. We'll be doing that every single day.